The title of today's Brandon's blog is Legal Proceeding Judgment Lien. Two kinds of judgment liens with hugely different results in bankruptcy. Sometimes when people or companies come to us for a no-cost consultation, it turns out that some of their debts have already been proven in court and been reduced to a judgment. Therefore, Brandon today wanted to write a blog about what happens when a judgment creditor is able to lien either your personal property or your real property. My name is Ira Smith, president of Ira Smith Trustee and Receiver, Inc. I hope you can watch until the end of this video because I know you will find it informative. Brandon and I had thought that the law was very well set. A very recent decision out of the Alberta court shows that what we've always felt to be the law still is the law. Brandon first goes through what you can do if a person or company owes you money and they're not paying. Obviously, you try every method you have. You make demand. If that doesn't work, you may need to retain a lawyer. The lawyer makes demand. If that doesn't work, you may have to sue. And what if you're successful and you get a judgment? Well, that's just a proven debt in court. You now have to collect on that judgment. And there are two kinds of judgments in Canada that have very different results in bankruptcy. And that's what the case was about, and that's what Brandon writes about. The first kind of judgment is the kind that Canada Revenue Agency can get if a person or company owes them income tax. They can go to federal court without any notice to anyone and get a judgment which is called a memorial. They then look for property, and in particular real estate, to register that judgment, that memorial, against. A combination of the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act and the Income Tax Act makes Canada Revenue Agency go from an unsecured creditor status to a priority secured creditor status once they register that judgment. It doesn't matter how many judgments have registered before them, and it doesn't even matter how many mortgages have been registered before them. Once Canada Revenue Agency registers their memorial, they're deemed to have a priority secured interest in the land owned by that tax debtor, and they move right to the top. And in bankruptcy, their debt survives. That's very different than any other kind of judgment. That if you're not Canada Revenue Agency, you're just an ordinary person or company, you sue, you get judgment, you register your writ on title to the real property. As this case shows, and as Brandon fully describes below in his blog, that's just a placeholder. That placeholder is notice to the world that this property cannot be sold by the owner or financed or refinanced without dealing with the judgment lien creditors who have registered against the property. That's if the owner is not bankrupt. Once the owner is bankrupt, those registrations, those lien registrations mean nothing. The judgment proves the debt, but all those lien holders, they're not secured creditors. They don't have any greater priority. They're just ordinary unsecured creditors. And the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act says that all the ordinary unsecured creditors have to be treated the same. So in a bankruptcy, first comes deemed trust holders, which are generally government agencies that have been given a deemed trust status in a bankruptcy. The main one is for a company or a business employer unremitted source deductions. Second would come secured creditors, those with registered security, including Canada Revenue Agency that has a memorial. And then the preferred creditors, and then the ordinary unsecured creditors. And that's the pecking order. As you'll see in the case below, the trustee tried to argue that there's some sort of priority based on when different creditors registered their judgment liens, but the court said no, they're all ordinary unsecured creditors. So I hope you can read the entire Brandon's blog below, because I know you will get value from it. Both Brandon Smith and myself are available to answer any questions that you may have. So shoot us a message, give us a phone call, whether it's about this Brandon's blog or anything else at all. We would love to hear from you.